So, it is another day making a video about the Indiana Fever. Are they the best team in the world? No, they're far from it. Are they the most interesting team? Yeah, because they are just a completely incompetent franchise. It is a completely incompetent franchise. I made plenty of videos about just how bad they are as a franchise, but in this video, we're going to be treating them like they are a proper franchise. They are a proper basketball team. And what do proper basketball teams do? They sometimes have to make really tough decisions for the sake of the team. Because at the end of the day, for people saying they will not make this decision because they need to make money, there's 17,000 people at games because of one player, I'm going to let you guys know that if you guys don't know anything about the Fever as a team, their owner effectively has said that this team is a tax write-off. This team is a tax write-off for them. So them making money, all it doesn't make any difference. He's a multi-billionaire owner. It makes absolutely no difference. It might make things a little bit more awkward for him, but he basically treats the team as a tax write-off, as the Pacers owner, and what they should do. So there's one of two things they should do to help build this team. And it's make a choice. And I think they need to do it over the Olympic break. So I think the trade deadline is still okay around the time of the Olympic break. So I think it's the time when they really have to go out of their way to make that decision. And the decision is basically, do they build around Caitlin Clark or build around Aaliyah Boston? And I think they have to make that decision because of the fact that both Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston still right now have major trade value. They have absolutely, like, Aaliyah Boston, as much as I can guarantee you can get a really big trade package for her. You can get a lot of good players, but you can get a king's ransom for Caitlin Clark. You can get a much better trade package for Clark just because of the fact that, like, look, she is going to put butts in seats, and a lot of owners have not publicly came out and said it's a tax write-off. And she's also, I think, on a good team, could be really good. So you got to look at the reasons for and against trading Boston or for and against trading Clark. The reasons for trading Clark is main reason for trading Clark is the team was better before she got here. The team was better last year running through Aaliyah Boston than they were this year. With Caitlin Clark not on that team, and look, I'm not saying Aaliyah Boston right now is as good as she was last year, because she's not. The team with an in-shape Aaliyah Boston, with Kelsey Mitchell doing her thing, with Nalissa Smith, with Erica Wheeler, they had Vivians last year, but that team was better than this year's Fever team. That team was better because they played a slow down style of basketball through Aaliyah Boston, and in a slow tempo of basketball, the defense was like in a slow pace. Their defense wasn't exposed as much. Their lack of transition defense wasn't exposed as much. So a lot of the flaws that we've seen with the Fever were not exposed as much with the slow down style of play. It's also the style of play that Christy Sides wants to play. It is the style of play their coach wants to play. It's the way their coach, it's their philosophy of basketball. And they just look more in cohesion playing slow style of basketball. They do. This team looks like they are more on the same page playing a slow style of basketball. The problem is it's not going to work this year because Aaliyah Boston is not on the level she was last year, but I think Aaliyah Boston can eventually get back to that level. I think there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Aaliyah Boston is going to be an all-star again in her career. Not this year, but at some stage she will be. Trust me on that. At some stage she will be in her career. But when it comes to this team, you've got Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, and that there's some cohesion there. Like, they're still a terrible team, by the way. They're a terrible team whatever way they go to play. But with a lineup of, let's just say, Katie Lou, Mitchell, Wheeler, Boston, and Smith, they can play a style of play that is very different to what they run with the Caitlin Clark. And I actually think, as of right now, the team would have as much success. And if you trade Caitlin Clark, you can bring in probably a player of the level of a Jackie Young. You can bring in a all-star for Caitlin Clark as a trade. You can bring in a ready-made all-star. You can pick. There are, I would say, 10 players in the league that you could not get for Caitlin Clark. Like, you could give her up and get almost anyone in this league. You can get any guard in this league, get any wing in this league. There are about 10 players. I'm trying to think of who you wouldn't be able to get for Caitlin Clark. You probably wouldn't be able to get Cal Copper with the way she's been playing. Again, I don't know how necessarily the contracts work. You wouldn't be able to get Aja Wilson. You wouldn't be able to get Breanna Stewart. You wouldn't be able to get Sabrina Ionescu, Jonquel Jones. You wouldn't be able to get Jewel Lloyd. Like, a lot of the Team USA players, but I'm convinced if you went to the Aces for Kelsey Plum or Jackie Young, you could get either of those for Caitlin Clark. I think you actually could. And then there is the opposite. There is the Caitlin Clark dilemma. And it's like, do you take Caitlin Clark and build around her? And if you build around Caitlin Clark, you basically have to get rid of the whole team. That is the reason against it, is that you have to get rid of that whole team. Players on the Fever that suit playing with Caitlin Clark are Clark, Celeste Taylor, Temi Fagbenle, and to an extent, Alyssa Smith. You can keep Alyssa Smith, especially because it might work in recruiting Dejanay Carrington, who's a perfect player to play with Caitlin Clark. You would have to get rid of the entire team. And the big problem is no one wants to play in Indiana. It's an incompetent franchise. No one wants to go to Indiana. So you have to then start drafting players based on how they fit with Clark. You have to start approaching free agents based on how they fit with Clark. And there are a lot of really, really good players that will fit great with Caitlin Clark. The problem is they won't play for Indiana. So I don't see how Caitlin Clark is a success in Indiana. I think Caitlin Clark's going to be really successful in her WNBA career. I don't think she's going to be a success in Indiana because there are no bigs that are going to help her. You're not going to be able to recruit in a player to Indiana to help Caitlin Clark. And I don't see how there's any possibility for success with this incompetent franchise basing it around Caitlin Clark. I think they will be, if they want to become a 50% win, if they want to win half their games, they're better off getting your all-star player for Clark and sending Clark off. If that's what their goal is. If their goal is to put butts in seats, obviously you build around Caitlin Clark. But the worst thing they could do is what I think they're going to do and try to make Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston work. Caitlin Clark is garbage, and I mean it, garbage in a slow down style of basketball. And people are like, oh, but like Iowa this, Iowa that. Like, one, it's college, it's different. And two, even in the half court, Iowa played a fast-paced half-court offense. They all knew what they were doing. They all knew their roles. And Aaliyah Boston is terrible in transition. On both offense and defense, she's terrible in transition. You've got Caitlin Clark, who's very good off-ball defender, quick with her hands, but can't guard a tree. And she's in a bad situation with the way they play defense. So, the worst thing that this team can do is try to make Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston work. These are two very good players, by the way. These are two really, really good players. And look, it's very clear right now Caitlin Clark is better, but when Aaliyah Boston gets back in shape, I'm not sure if Caitlin Clark this year is better than Aaliyah Boston as a rookie last year. Let's be real. That's how good Aaliyah Boston was as a rookie. So, I don't really know what they should do. From purely basketball standpoint, I think the easiest thing they can do is get rid of Clark. If they want to keep Christy Sides, if they want to not change the way they play, if they want to get back to competency, which is winning 50% of your games, the easiest thing to do is trade Caitlin Clark for an all-star, let Erica Wheeler go, sign someone else that fits in free agency, and go out with that team next year with whoever they trade for Clark, Smith, Boston, Katie Lou, and the free agent. Also, get rid of Celeste Taylor as well. Heck, ship Celeste Taylor off with Caitlin Clark. If for them to build around Caitlin Clark, they need to trade the whole team. They have the potential. They have a higher potential with keeping Caitlin Clark. Like, you could build a whole run and gun team like the WNBA has never seen before, but that's all potential. So I don't know. I think they're not going to do it, but I think trading Caitlin Clark might be the move, to be honest.